Today I'm making salmon topped with crumbs made from potato chips and fresh dill. It is an absolute crowd pleaser. As I mentioned, it uses potato chips. Now the type of chips you use really do matter here. You don't want to use anything too thin. You want a nice thick kettle chip or wood chip with those thick ridges so it has some structure. So you want 4 ounces of chips, and now you get to bash them into crumbs. Only one way to do this, and that's with a rolling pin. So you just put them in a plastic bag like this and get to rolling. It's like the bottom of the bag, you know, that you tip up into your mouth, but it's the entire bag is that texture. I know putting potato chips on fish might seem a little silly, but if you think about it, it's just cooked potatoes, and wrapping fish with thinly sliced potatoes is a classic French technique. We just sort of skipped the cooking of the potato part and went right to the chip. All right, you want them to be broken down into pretty even sizes, about the size of grape nuts. All right, that looks great. Into a big bowl they go. All right. Now to the chips, we're gonna add a cup of toasted breadcrumbs. Now I made these breadcrumbs myself, and it's about 3 pieces of bread with the crust taken off. You grind them up in the food processor, you throw them in a degree oven for about 5 minutes, gets them nice and toasty. I actually save all my bread ends from the sandwich bread because my daughter and my husband don't love the bread ends. Grind them up, toast them, throw them in the freezer, and they're ready anytime. So it's one of those things I just always seem to have around. All right, now for the dill. Really helps freshen the topping up. You want a lot of it, about 6 tablespoons when it's all chopped up. Taking all the tough stems off, just leaving those delicate frilly ends. Always gotta gauge it before it's chopped, how much you're gonna get. All right, let's give this a good chop. Now you want these pieces pretty fine, so you want them to really work into the topping. That's not hard with dill. Those fronds are so delicate, they chop up really quickly. I know, it looked like a big pile of dill when I started, and it's getting smaller and smaller. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, a little generous on the 6 side, but not bad. A little extra dill's okay. All right, so into the bowl of crumbs they go. Oh, potato chips and dill. Yes. This topping tastes good on a lot of different things too, but on salmon, it is particularly spectacular. All right, so the topping is done. Gonna set this aside, give my hands a quick wash. All right, now for the salmon. Now this is kind of a showstopper. This is a whole side of salmon, about 3.5 pounds. The skin is still on, but the trick I've learned is sometimes the salmon can be long and narrow, sometimes it can be short and fat, but to get it to really fit on the baking sheet, the rimmed baking sheet, you wanna go corner to corner. And this sling, you see that? It's a foil sling. That just makes it really easy to maneuver the salmon after it's cooked and it's on the more delicate side. So, onto the salmon, just a little bit of oil, about a teaspoon. I'm gonna brush that on nice and evenly. Make sure it gets nicely coated. Now we're gonna season the salmon with a good amount of salt and pepper. You can back off on the pepper if you're not a big fan of pepper, but man, I love it. All right, that looks good on the pepper. I know it's heavy on the pepper side, but I like that. You can season it as much or as little as you want with the pepper. I'm gonna use some salt. Oh yeah. All right, so the salmon is ready for the oven, and the trick is to cook the salmon on its own first and then add the breadcrumbs for the last few minutes. So to cook the salmon, we're gonna use the broiler. So we're gonna put this on a rack that's just 3 inches under the broiler element, which gives the salmon a huge blast of heat and cooks it really quickly. So the salmon's gonna cook only in about 10 minutes. All right, so when we come back, we're gonna add that potato chip and dill topping. Oh, that looks perfect. You can tell it's the perfect level of doneness because you can see the salmon is starting to flake away. So now's when we're gonna add the breadcrumb topping. Ziggy's picking up now. Smells some cooked salmon. All right, so you want about 3 tablespoons of Dijon. We're just gonna brush this evenly over the salmon, and this is gonna be the glue for the crumb topping. All right, You want that crumb topping to stick evenly all over the salmon, so make sure the Dijon is all over the salmon so that the crumbs can really stick. All right, that looks pretty well coated. Now for the crumbs. The best way to do this, I have found over the years, is just to use your hands to sprinkle them over the salmon and then press them on. All right, that looks pretty well coated. The last few right down the middle. I like a good crumb coating. All right, so this salmon is going back into the oven just for a minute, and I'm not gonna use that upper rack. I'm using a rack further down in the oven. That way the crumbs won't burn, but we're still using the broiler. So back in for just a minute. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Beautiful. You can see that nice halo of toasted crumbs on the top. Awesome. All right, so the trick of this recipe now is to get the salmon off the sheet pan onto a platter, but that's where that foil sling is gonna come in real handy. And believe it or not, the foil doesn't get hot, it stays pretty cool, it cools off pretty quickly. So using that, we can transfer the salmon right to the platter. Right, I'm gonna spin it around so the thick side of the salmon is facing me. All right, so using an offset spatula, I like to tear off the foil. This is gonna be sort of the landing edge, if you will. So you wanna take an offset spatula, just run it underneath the salmon, loosen it from the foil. Some of the skin I found of the salmon sticks to the foil, which is actually kind of nice, so that if that happens, no love lost there. All right, so holding the salmon in place with an offset spatula, I'm just gonna gently pull the foil out. I like to curl the foil up as I go, that way it doesn't make too big of a mess. You can see that salmon skin, a lot of it stuck to the back of the foil, which is lovely. And there you go, onto the platter. And I like the extra crumbs around. I think that just makes it look fun. Even them out a bit. And then of course, some lemon wedges. Put it right on the platter. Just a fun way to serve salmon. Really casual with the potato chips, but really delicious. All right, so some lemons on the platter, zhuzhes things up a bit. Last but not least, a few sprigs of dill. I like putting the dill around not only because it's pretty, but it gives people a sense of what flavor they're in for. All right, and that is it. Time to eat. Here's the orzo salad. All right, so to serve this, I cut it right on the platter because you want to preserve as much of those crumbs as you can. Here, we'll put this up front. And using an offset spatula. Oh. Did you hear that sound? That sound is he running down the stairs just in time for dinner. Hi, buddy. He's a big fan of salmon. Last but not least, a little white wine to go with the salmon. I have a nice Sancerre. So a Sancerre tastes great with salmon. Actually, it tastes great with everything. It's from the Sancerre region in the Loire Valley, and they're known for their Sauvignon Blanc, which is what this is. So when in doubt, if you're going to someone's house, bring a Sancerre. Let's get a little bit of salmon. You can see it's perfectly cooked. The crisp crumbs and that salmon with the pepper and the Dijon and all that fresh dill. It is such a good combination of flavors. Thanks for watching. What'd you think? Leave a comment below and let me know what you're excited to cook this week. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. You can get today's recipes and more for free at our website, americastestkitchen.com/JuliaAtHome.